Hi everyone, I am live here tonight with Rebecca Rafferty, and we are talking about setting up Women in Tech York and setting up a creating an inclusive community.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can't even get my tongue around it tonight. So I have been part of Women in Tech York for about 18 months. It's been running for 3 years. And I wanted to start with that. When the first night that I went along, I was super nervous. I'm never sure about network events and kind of a bit tense, but actually I loved it. And I really enjoyed the community feel, the kind of the welcoming, the environment, the way everyone kind of said hello to me, and everything that was just sort of set up just in that first meeting that I was immediately addicted. So it was like so lovely. And so when Rebecca said, because she's been part of the Visibility Challenge and she's been talking about stuff, and she said she'd probably like to talk about it, I was like, yeah, let's get her in and let's talk about and get her to share what they did, how Women in Tech York came about, and all that sort of stuff. So that's what we're here to do tonight. Hopefully providing some inspiration as well for you to go out and set up your own community. So because we need more and more of these. But yeah, welcome, Rebecca. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So before we get started, I always ask this question, I think, in some form or another, but tell us a bit about you and how you get into tech, because that's kind of, it gives us a bit of an idea of your background and stuff.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Rebecca. Hi, everybody. I did a physics degree at university and wasn't really interested in tech at all. I wanted to go into research and, do something to change the world, like a lot of people tend to do when they do a science degree. But by the end of my degree, I was just done. And I took a punt on a job in Durham as a software developer. I couldn't code. They taught me to code. And while I was there, I realised that there wasn't many female developers, and obviously physics is quite male heavy too, but I'd never been somewhere in a workplace where it was quite obvious and evident, and somebody made a joke that I was the diversity tick, so it gives you a context of how everyone was thinking about it, I guess. But I was terrible at coding, so I knew quite quickly that I didn't want to stay there. So after a few non-starting jobs and having to go back to development, I ended up as a product owner, which is what I do now. So working with developers, working with stakeholders, gathering requirements, doing lots of bits and pieces, and just generally running around, sometimes like a headless chicken, like your the poll we did the other day. But yeah, I do really enjoy it, and I like being in tech, definitely. And
so using your experience that you got in your physics degree and from being a developer, and then pulling that into how do we make products happen, and that's
yeah. And then I find as well, because I've been a developer, I know how to talk to developers. I think everyone can learn, but it was easier. I instantly connect with them, and then sometimes it's almost like you've got them on side before you've started, because you're like, oh, I used to be the same as you. I know how it feels. I have to shout at the product person and say, please stop it. Stop giving us extra work.
And the other thing is, it's knowing what it means to develop software, because if you've never done it before, you don't really understand what that process is. So having done that, people can see that you've got an understanding when you ask them to do something, that actually what it takes. So yeah,
definitely. A lot of people think you can just kind of snap your fingers and something changes. And I definitely feel that pressure sometimes from other people. So yeah, it's nice that I can push back already and say, no, that will take time.
That's cool. So what inspired you to set up Women in Tech event in York? Because it's Women in Tech York that you set up. So what inspired you to do that?
Well, we set it up when I was a developer. My colleague, Ashley, and we worked together. We just thought, why not? Why not have these kind of events? We'd been to one in Leeds, went to a Sky Bet event, and that was very swanky with a cocktail bar and a DJ and all sorts of things. It was very nice, but it was very high end, and then we'd been to an event in Nottingham. There, Women in Tech York is a really strong community down there, and we just felt so inspired by all these different people that we'd seen. And then we tried a few of the York Tech events, and they were all quite specific. So like developers or testers or agile, so all really interesting, but neither Ashley or I could attend things together generally, because I was a developer and she was a tester. So there is crossover, but if it's a .NET event, she doesn't care. If it's a tester event, I don't care. So we thought
it's very kind of honed down into particular skill sets.
And we just thought maybe a generalist event would be good. And we'd obviously both experienced being the, gender minority in tech events. So we thought, why not? Why not create something? And York has a wonderful tech scene. There's so many tech companies here. So it really was just, why not? We've been to a few good ones. There's lots of tech in York. Why can't we have our own?
Yeah. And that's just cool.
Yeah.
And then you just went for it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing when people sort of say, like, well, how did you do it? It really was a case of just, let's just try. Let's just go. Let's just do it. Why not?
Yeah. And so then what happened at the first meeting? What was the first thing?
It was really good.
What happened before the first meeting, but how did you pull that together, that first meeting?
Yeah, the first meeting was really good. It was, if anybody came to it, it was so small. I booked a really small room in a pub, thinking if we get 10 people, it'll look cozy, it'll feel comfortable, it won't look silly. Equally, if I'm just talking to myself, I'll just get a pint and it doesn't matter. It's fine, it doesn't matter. And we put the tickets up, and they sold out within 48 hours of us putting up just free tickets. So it was a bit panicky because we'd done a few false starts before and tried some cold calling. We tried some other things in networking that just failed. It just wasn't working. So we just thought, let's just go. And we told people, invite your friends. I think we had a Twitter account, but we did a little bit of sharing and basically just sort of tried to get the word out and said, just bring friends, bring people, everybody's welcome, And yeah, they sold out. So we increased the amount we had because I didn't know about the dropout rate of events, so that you assume that, say, 50 to 75% of people are going to drop out, whatever it is. So we upped the tickets. They were gone within 12 hours. And then on the actual meeting, we filled that room, that tiny little room. It's capacity of 30. I dread to think how many people were actually in the room. It must have been at least 40.
You didn't actually have the dropout rate.
No, we didn't. We had a very small dropout rate, but not really. It wasn't what I was promised. Yeah. So we all squished in, and then it was my first ever time public speaking since school, really, outside of work. So I was very nervous. I had my little note cards, and I was just, and then someone helpfully, I think at the time, but they did give me like a note that said, here's loads of stats, include them in your talk. And that was me. I couldn't adapt that through me. That was me. But and then we had some other people talk. So we had a lady called Sam who talked about her community in Nottingham, ladies at UX, and then two ladies from Sky Bet who talked about their graduate sort of tech program and how they try and make it as diverse as possible. So it was good. We had no networking, just a little bit at the end. But it was good. It was a good kickoff, and it was very, very warm, very, very sweaty, but very nice. Very good fun.
It was summer as well, wasn't it? So it's just on 3 years ago now.
May,
so.
Yeah, it was. I think it was middle of May or late May. It was very warm, and I just moved into my new house as well, so I wasn't quite in the. I was thinking, why am I starting this off at the same time as everything in my personal life?
It's amazing how those things just seem to come together sometimes. But actually, we just get on and cope with them, and sometimes we do more when we're under more, when there's more going on, because we don't overthink it quite so much. But
you haven't got time, have you? You have to just get on with it.
You just have to do it. So so you ran the first meeting and it was a success, and lots of people were interested. So what next? What happened after that?
Well, we couldn't believe it, to be quite honest. It took us a good 2 months to sort of actually plan the next one, because we were so not in shock. I mean, I knew there would be some kind of market for it, but I was in shock, I guess, at how fast the word got round and how quickly it grew. So about 2 months later, we had an event. I think we did lightning talks for our first one. So we didn't get as many people, but we were fine with that. We just kind of wanted to have another go and see what it was like. We booked a different venue. We did Pitch and Piano, which is a bar in the centre of York. So much bigger, nice presentation space, better food, free bar, so people didn't have to try and figure out where they were getting a drink from and things. So it was good. And then after that, we started to do ad hoc events once a month. And then someone said, it's a bit frustrating that we don't know when it's going to be, every month. So we agreed on the second Thursday of the month. Thought that's good, routine. Then everyone knows that even if they don't know the topic, they can kind of pencil it in their diary if they want to come. And then we roughly stayed with Pitch and Piano until Revolution, which is across the road from them, had a bit of a better deal. Just so we thought, why not? We'll just swap. We'll try there. And actually, I think that was a better space. It's much more like the Pitch and Piano venue. The talking was at one end and the networking was the other. Whereas Revolution, it's a bit more. Everyone was just sat. There wasn't rows. There was cushions. There was couches. It was a bit more It's suited how
it's quite a
informal.
nice close environment, but there's enough space to spread out, isn't there? So it's
definitely.
And I know the pitch and piano space as well, and that's definitely a sort of bigger. You feel a bit more in it.
Yeah, we did. We definitely felt lost in it, and they always were very kindly, but they always set us out rows of chairs. So like you kind of felt like when you'd sat down, that was your chair. Whereas I think Revolution, they've got couches and not everything's in a row and things. So it's a bit more relaxed and casual.
And that's really interesting as well, in the sense that, so when you're setting up an event, you kind of think, well, I need to kind of figure that all out to start with, what's the venue going to be, so we can make it often and we can kind of put some structure in. But actually the fact that you kind of tried a few things, saw how it went, and tried another venue, and then weren't kind of, okay, that one maybe, it's kind of honing down your requirements, isn't it? Trying it out, figuring it out, and getting to the point where you're like, yeah, actually this is what works for us and the community that we've got.
Definitely. It was like with pitch and piano, the requirement was just a big room with a bar and space for people to just be, and it worked well for us. And then when we had to swap to Revolution, I think they couldn't do us one event, and we thought, whoa, hang on a minute, this space is better for us, really. And they've got a disco ball, which is always exceptional to pull out at party events. So you can't go wrong with that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they were good. And we held our first birthday there for the and they had balloons and confetti and all sorts. And I just felt, this is for us, you know. They were good.
So tell me about, what 3 years on, what's Women in Tech York now? What would you say it's become?
It's become a lot. I think it's become a lot bigger. We get a lot of people coming. At the moment, it's obviously remote, so we have seen attendance drop, but I think that's just because people are just having a bit of Zoom fatigue in some cases. But it's become a really supportive community. It's grown from quite small, not many regulars, to now having a lot of regulars and a lot of new people too. But I think when you get a lot of regulars, it creates that community, like you were saying earlier. And then the new people, it's almost like they know who to go to, because there's someone who looks very relaxed and is happy to then speak to them. But we've got ambassadors now. We've got a committee that run the different events. The ambassadors help us.
The other thing that's kind of key is that it's open to everyone, isn't it? It's not just women. And so there's a general sense of anyone can come in. And I guess it's not even just, there's a wide variety of tech jobs in there, isn't there? It's not like you have to be a pure techie or anything like that. If you're interested in tech, it's kind of come along and get stuck in, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So everyone's welcome. You can't have like the conversations about gender if you don't have all the genders in the room. So it's definitely important that everybody feels represented there. And you're right, we've got people who just work in a tech company in the marketing department, for example, and they just want to have an idea of what the developers next door actually do, but they're not that friendly, maybe, you know. So I think it's a great place to learn about tech, even if your job is not techie at all. You don't have to. Nothing we do is particularly techie. The talks, you know, some of them go into a bit more detail, but they always kind of do that ramping up approach. So you can kind of tune in as long as you need to. We did a talk about quantum physics once, and it was very interesting. And she explained it really well with cats and in different colours, and everyone was like, that was amazing. I've got no idea what she was talking about, but I feel informed and ready to learn more. So I like to think of it as kind of like a springboard. So if you learn something at that night, you can then talk to someone else, learn something else, or apply it, you know. I think it's a nice safe space to learn in, I think. Yeah,
definitely. I that's what I feel, and having been along, it's just everyone's happy to share their stuff. And what you're saying about kind of people start to know who the people are that have been for a while. And I think part of that is that once you've been, you know that's the part of it is welcoming new people in. So you kind of automatically step into the role. Oh, there's a new person. Oh, let's go and have a chat with them. Let's go and make them feel welcome. And so that comes through in the actions and how people then show up. So I think that works really well too.
Yeah, definitely. I do really like it. And we've, over the sort of 3 years, we've set goals for ourselves, what we want to kind of do. So, you know, have conversations that are maybe a bit difficult about diversity in the workplace, make sure we support everybody that comes to our events, and then just making the community welcome, keeping them engaged, doing different events, you know, doing things that they want. So we've done sessions on I Am Remarkable. Have you heard of those workshops? So for anyone who doesn't know what they are, they're just a really great way of feeling good about yourself. And it's helping you reframe your mindset to feel remarkable. And that was one of our best attended events. It was exceptional. Everybody walked out of that room feeling great, and that's what I want everyone to feel when they leave Women in Tech York.
Yeah. And the only reason I've heard about them is because people have talked about that event to me.
Yeah,
so this is years on, so it's lasted in people's memories as well. But there's definitely a diversity of different things that you run, different talks. So I've been to AI ones and career ones, and run a couple as well, but it's kind of looking from all different perspectives. And the other thing that is lovely is the fact that it's a really great way of bringing people up as well. So there are people in the community who have kind of been nervous about speaking, and they've stepped up and done a lightning talk and then done a full talk and stuff like that. So that's really lovely to see too.
Yeah, definitely. That's why we do the lightning talks, because a 5-minute talk is significantly less scarier than filling half a session. So that's why we put them on. So people, it's like a little gateway. They're like, go on, I'll give it a go. And then they're like, oh yeah, okay, that wasn't that scary. And Steph, obviously, was part of this group. She did her first 2 talks at Women in Tech York, and they were fab. So it just goes to show that it's a good place to test out your skills if you want to give a talk for the first time.
Definitely, yeah. And so we've talked a little bit about this, but what specifically do you do to make it welcoming, inclusive? What's some tips you can share for other people that they might use to welcome people in and make it feel inclusive?
Yeah, we had been to quite a few tech events in York, different places, and we found sometimes you kind of just went in, you just sat down. You didn't, there wasn't any talking. So we do a few different things. Pretty much what we did is Ashley and myself, and then the committee generally, we think like, if I went to an event, what would make me feel comfortable? What would make me instantly relax at an event? And for me, a big one is name badges. I can't remember names for toffee. I'm terrible. So if someone's got it on them, then I feel happy to talk to someone, because it's not really embarrassing to just say, sorry, what is your name? And just look at their name badge once it's all there.
Yeah.
So we started with that, name badges. We have a registration desk. So it's not really necessary, but it's a good way for someone to speak to someone immediately. So as soon as they enter the room, they're asked what their name is. Someone tells them about a competition we're running. They've already started a conversation, and then usually it's an ambassador's job, or like you say, it's organic happens sometimes. Someone will then introduce themselves to them, speak to them, and just kind of gauge their comfort levels. Because some people are happy to just come into an event, take their coat off, get a drink, and then they're ready to talk, whereas others are ready to just launch in immediately. So we tend to try and do that around the talking, but we've learned quite a lot. We've done things like little stickers to say I'm new here. So if you're new an ambassador, which would wear one of these t-shirts, they know who to find and talk to. So if someone stood on their own and they've got a gold star on, someone would go over and introduce themselves and just be like, oh, how are you, welcome, I'm glad you could make it. And then more recently we've gone for pronoun stickers as well, because we've got a bit of feedback that some people wanted to identify with their pronouns, then it's not awkward for them at all if their pronouns are stuck to their name badge, then everybody knows. So that's made a real big difference to different people wanting to attend. So and there's definitely an emphasis on stickers. I think I've seen a lot. We love stickers. We love stickers. Yeah. We've got women in tech ones as well.
And what you're saying about competitions, there's always a little competition running for some element or another to win a book or something like that, which kind of really it adds a different element to it. Gives you to talk about with people, and so it's definitely, there's lots of different kind of ways that you've just thought about to help people be a bit more comfortable.
I think as well, we've been lucky quite a few times that we've been given and donated tickets to different events in York and around York. So again, that's another draw to get people in. Oh well, I'll go and try and win that ticket, and then they arrive and they think, oh, okay, actually, it doesn't matter if I win or not. This is good. This is interesting. So and like you say, the competitions are good for Twitter as well. So if someone's a bit nervous about being there, they can tweet along if that makes them feel more comfortable, and then they might win something out of tweeting. So it works for us as well to generate that kind of interest and get more people in the door.
And the other thing that I don't know if I first came across it with you, but you guys put in relatively early on was kind of the being able to ask questions anonymously.
Yes, we've got a
someone there, isn't there, that's kind of monitoring the questions throughout the event. It's a bit easier online, but actually even before you went online, you could submit a question and then ask the speaker without having to identify yourself, which I think that's really nice as well. Yeah,
we did that. I think the first event we did that for was something like imposter syndrome. It was an event where we knew that questions wouldn't probably be readily asked.
Yeah.
So it was a huge success on that event. Some of the tech events, people tend to be happy to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I find it's a cascade effect. So we always try and ensure that the person running the event is the first person to ask a question, or an ambassador has a question ready. So it at least kicks off the floor. I mean, some events you can't keep people's hands down, which is amazing. But others, there's just that little bit of prompting that you need. And the anonymous questions is a great way to allow people to feel like they've been listened to without them having to stick their head up if they don't want to. But yeah, we were quite big on those things, and yeah, I think they're really important, because then it gives people who are a bit more nervous that space to still get involved and ask questions and
feel like they're part of it.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And so this was a question that came up in the group earlier, which was about speakers. So how do you get hold of speakers for events? Where do you look, and how do you source them?
Yeah, speakers are quite difficult. I'm sure people who run events will agree with this. Speakers can be quite hard to find, especially if you're an event that we can't really always afford to pay speaker fees. So we can't tend to get people who speak professionally, because obviously they deserve to get paid for their work. And so the people that we tend to get hold of are people who come to our events. So we get attendees to speak. But at the very beginning, we did a little bit of emailing out to universities and emailing out to sort of student clubs to sort of see if people would like to give us a try. And then Women in Tech has some sponsors, so we asked them if they had anybody that would like to speak, and then the committee have done their fair share of talks to keep us kind of going. And what we quite like to do at the beginning, although it became harder, was to try and pick 2 talks that were very similar or had similar kind of themes. But that gets quite complicated, or tenuously linked talks sometimes.
So you kind of frame what the event's all about when it's 2 talks, and what are people coming to?
Yeah. How do we say, like, we had one talk that was about AI, and then another one that on the same night was the quantum computing one, and it was like future tech. You know, it really was quite a tenuous link. But I think sourcing speakers can be one of the hardest parts of running these events, definitely. And
I've just had a comment, I'm not sure who, because it's anonymous at the moment, but someone saying, I'm a speaker. Feel free to reach out. I'm a confidence whisperer. So when we go back into it, you can either, so if you're watching, then you can either click and give StreamYard permission for us to see who you are, but we'll also follow up afterwards as well if you prefer to remain anonymous. But the confidence. Oh, hi Alex, brilliant.
Hi Alex. Yes, I'll be tapping into that. I'll be contacting you after, definitely, Alex.
But that's the same. So I also have spoken a few times, but I think it is that sort of it's one of the things I love is seeing people come through. So taking a chance on the upcoming people, giving them the chance to speak out as well, alongside maybe someone who is more kind of seasoned as a speaker. It's worth sort of just saying, so I've been involved in a research project with the university about making games events more inclusive, and it's just coming to the close of that, and all the best practice that's coming out, so much of what you're sharing that you've done, I'm like, yep, they've done that. But that was definitely one of the recommendations, in that was kind of use it as a platform to grow other people within the community, as well as kind of promoting the people that are there, and that really helps people to get to know each other too. So yeah,
definitely. And I think, like we touched on earlier, like with growing people, lightning talks are a really great way to source speakers, like in stealth mode. So you know, encouraging people to do it, but then encouraging on the night someone to just give it a go, because you don't know who's sat there thinking, oh, I wish I'd done that. So I always think, if you do lightning talks, leave a gap, leave 2 or 3 spaces that you can fill. If you don't fill, doesn't matter, the event ends early. But it makes that space for someone who thought, do you know what, tonight is the night, I will do it. And then that's another speaker ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you kind of feed back to them, but give them that boost so that they then step up and have a bigger go. And then before you know it, we've got more women in tech being visible.
Yay, which is the whole thing.
So what support do you have? So it started off as you and Ashley. Who else is involved? You've kind of mentioned a little bit about ambassadors, but how does it work with kind of delegating stuff out and making it all run smoothly?
Yeah, so Ashley and I were at the very beginning, Ashley, my colleague, and we did everything at the beginning. We booked all the speakers, we booked all the venues. But on the first event, we did get volunteers to help, because we didn't know how big it was. Ashley was actually unwell for the first event, so I was on my own asking for
Wow.
help. So yeah, it was very evident at that moment that it couldn't just be the two of us. Even if it was going to be a small event, it needed to be more. And I think it's important to have different voices in any sort of event. So we created like a community, although it wasn't a committee, although it wasn't officially a committee at the time. It was just 4 of us, myself, Ashley, and then 2 others, Sophie and Spencer, kind of created a little group, just a sounding board to kind of work out and source speakers from and things. And we've got sponsors as well at Women in Tech York. So we're very lucky. There's a company in York called Isotoma who were very quick to sponsor us. So after our second event, they came to every event, sponsored us, and it was just fab. And then since then, we've had a few sponsors. So at the moment, it's there's another company called Pixel and a company called NetSells, and they just give us enough money to run the events. It's just to, use on food, pay for speakers' transport so they can actually get to us and get back and things like that. But yeah, and then like you said with the ambassadors, so that's just people who don't really want to do too much, but because they come to events, they're happy to help out while they're there. So really it's to do with greeting. Sometimes people have the job of turning the music up and down, just things that
making sure things run smoothly, isn't it?
Kind of exactly.
Shepherding towards the food and making sure that all works out. And online, it's been about kind of when we're asking questions and fielding questions and stuff like that as well. We've been
definitely
doing.
And monitoring, like you're saying, the anonymous question box. So we're lucky. We just grew the committee really before we went into lockdown. With 2 members, Steph and Cara, joined us, and they have been a really great help. I've been online because online can be a bit more hard work, actually. I think you know, trying to run events, keep yourself motivated when you've just finished work and you've got to join another call. So it's good. And then the delegation was hard to delegate at the beginning because it felt almost like it was my and Ashley's like baby. We'd worked really hard, but then as soon as we started delegating, we thought, why didn't we do this weeks ago? It just meant everything. What didn't feel like you were doing everything, all the stress. It really helped take the committee sort of to the next level and helps us run events and just spread the love a little bit and give people that experience of running an event, because you never know when you're going to need that in your job or just in general, really.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Again, it's like helping other people learn how to run events, isn't it?
Yes.
And you mentioned sponsorship. How easy was it to find? Because that can sometimes be a bit of a challenge.
It can, yeah. So on our first event, the company that I worked for at the time, Mitre Finch, they sponsored us. So I just went to the CEO and said, please, can we just have 50 quid for sandwiches? That's all I need. Just enough to book the room and get some sandwiches. And he said, yep, sure. Why not? I want to support what you're doing. So we started with that. And then Isotoma, I mentioned, they came to the first event and they approached me at the end and said, we'd love to sponsor this. We sponsor a lot of tech events in York. Here's the CEO's card. Come meet him next week or whatever. And we went and we were very nervous. We went very professionally with our, hobbled together sponsorship pack, and we were all ready. And we didn't even get out of the bag before he was like, how much do you need? Yep, yeah, it's yours. It's yours. I just want to support tech in York. And, and they've sponsored us since. And they come to all our events and we email him every time it's for renewal. And he's like, yeah, just send me an invoice. I love it.
I think one of the things you said before is that they've got quite a lot out of it as well. So they've actually hired people off the back of it, and there's been real benefits for them for sponsoring. So
absolutely,
they can see the value just by their results rather than you having to go and explain it to them. So
exactly, I think that's why we've not been back to their offices to convince them, because they've hired people, they've pushed people through different code schools, they've done a lot of work within our community, and they've spoken quite a few times and drummed up, because they're a consultancy firm, I think, so they've actually drummed up business as well, so they've done really well. And then our other sponsors, the same thing. They came to events a little skeptical, you've got to convince people. They came to our events, saw the community and the warmth, and they thought, oh, we'd like to be part of this. Here's a bit of money. And then they get to speak at the beginning of events, they get to put their message out, or even just our volunteer speakers. And we not always prioritize them for a slot, but we make sure they get a good slot, or if they want to run an event, they can. So I think it can. I think I said to you, but we cheekily tweeted a few people at the beginning, and that didn't go well. No one was rude, but no one came back. So I realised that I had to start local and look at York firms to try and get some sponsors. But people are quite good if they can see a benefit for themselves.
Definitely. and so I was just checking the comments to see if there was anything in there, any questions in there. And how's the pandemic affected things? So what's you've mentioned that we've managed to keep going. It's managed to keep going through the pandemic. But how has it affected the way that it runs?
Yeah, so just before the pandemic, I think we ran our last event. It must have been close to when everything kind of went into lockdown. It was in the March, and it was a very poorly attended event for good reason.
I think I was supposed to be speaking, and I had to cancel. I went into isolation, so it was it was such a nightmare.
And I think that actually, we obviously didn't pass that information on, because at the time you just don't know. But that was kind of the kickoff. We all kind of realised that, and I was pregnant at the time, so I chose to stay home. So it quite quickly became a very small event. But then everyone got to sit apart, and it worked well. But pre the pandemic, we were getting sort of 50, 60 people, in the room per event. We were actually wondering whether we were going to have to think about venue capacity. It definitely fluctuates like per events, but since the pandemic, we got quite at the beginning because everyone was pleased to see the normality and still come to the event. But we've gone completely online at the moment, and I think maybe come September, depending on obviously what happens, we're hoping to run kind of hybrid events, so people can be online or in person if they want to. And we know that Revolution has plenty of space for everybody.
Yeah.
So we're not concerned about the space, but obviously ticket numbers will be limited.
Yeah.
But I think people have been less interested because it's been on Zoom, and the first one we did was our most successful, and that was a Teams call because none of us knew of any other technology to use, but we couldn't have anyone. It was almost like we were a bit like what we're doing now. It was just a stream.
Yeah.
And we couldn't turn on comments. We couldn't see other people's faces, and it was a talk about talking for the first time. And we just almost did it like a podcast. It was really good fun, but I had no concept because Slack wouldn't load on my phone. So I just was talking and hoping for the best, and I couldn't see all my smiling faces that I normally get in front of me. So it was weird, but we've got used to it. And I think you came and did a session where we learned about Zoom breakout rooms. So that's saved networking, which has been fab.
Yeah, it just felt, because we were on Teams for quite a while, weren't we? And then it was like, actually, there's something else in Zoom. Let's try it, and let's do a session on networking and get people used to it so that they can have a go. And then hopefully you can use that in other events. And I think the events have become a bit more interactive on them. But I also like the fact that, because there is a Slack group that everyone uses, and using that was a really good way of kind of seeing who was around and having comments coming through, and rather than relying on the chat, actually it was in the chat in Slack, which everyone, if you missed the event, you could go and catch up on it as well.
Yes.
Cool. So
definitely. And then our Slack channel is relatively quiet, but it does get used, like you say, at events and things. But at the very beginning of the pandemic, we put in new channels about remote working. I think we've got a new one now that's all about outside photos, you know. So we adapted Slack slightly to help people for things they needed. And then, we've had a student channel before, we had a tester channel before they got their own event in York. So it's nice that Slack has become more of a tool now. We're all remote. With all the different channels that we've had. So that's been a nice increase in engagement in Slack, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I've just rediscovered the Introduce Yourself channel, and it's a good way to go back and refresh your memory about people's backgrounds and stuff like that.
Definitely. And that Introduce Yourself channel, that was an idea the committee had to just, because I think someone said everyone is really cool, but I don't know anything about them. And it was, again, it's that visibility. It's writing a little bit about yourself on a Slack channel is a really simple way to just be visible. And even if you read it 1,000 times, as long as you press enter, you've taken that step. And I think I didn't actually realize how many people were ready to take that step and introduce themselves to women in tech. So it's a really great channel to have, I think, in these kind of communities.
So final couple of questions. So how's it impacted you doing this? What effects it had on your career and what you do, and just generally?
It's definitely built my confidence. Like I said, in the first event, I was there with notes, like petrified about speaking in public. And I couldn't believe that. I was actually, why was I doing this? So over the last 3 years, it's really helped me develop that ability to speak and things. But also as well, on a personal level, it's really helped me just meet different people and learn about different events that happen in York and in the country, and then also different careers that people have. So I didn't know that product owner existed until I sort of did Women in Tech York and started to speak to people. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. It's something I could do. And then a job came up and I applied for it and I got it. So it was useful to know that existed. And I've made some wonderful friends from it. And obviously, you know, meeting yourself and all sorts of different people, it's been a real benefit to me and my career and my skill set.
It's amazing what comes out of it, isn't it? Just from that chat and like, oh, you do what? Oh yeah, no, that's really interesting. And then suddenly you've got a kind of job offer or whatever it is. It's kind of going back to what we did in the Visibility Challenge, but it's amazing what happens when you start to just show up and do something in a different way, isn't it? And just go with it.
And I think networking was something like I always shied away from, a bit like you said, when you came to the first event, you were like, oh, not the biggest fan of networking. They can be complex, but it's helped me feel comfortable. But then it's also helped me feel comfortable with not speaking at an event if I don't want to. So if you go to a networking event, you know what, you don't want to network, that's all right as well. You don't have to, you know, you can
sit there and
just sit and have a drink, and someone might approach you. You don't have to be the brave person if you don't want to. There's a few women in tech events I've gone to and thought, oh, I don't want to be here. But then as soon as someone speaks to you, you think, no, do you know what? Yeah, this is the place I want to be right now. And and it really does help. And I have had job offers from Women in Tech York. None of them I accepted at the time because it wasn't quite right. But it's amazing just by being there and being the person that speaks. Like people that have never worked with you and have only seen you, you know, socially, I guess, offering you jobs without even knowing your skill set is quite a nice feeling.
And what you're doing is you're showing that by being an organizer, you're showing that you are responsible and you can set these things up and you can coordinate things and look at this, and it's a real demonstration of what you can do that companies want. And so of course they do, but it's funny when it happens, isn't it?
I always get thrown off a bit because I think, what, I'm just talking about women in tech here.
So I'm going to come to, if anyone's got any questions, drop them in the comments. We will come back to them in a couple of questions actually. So but finalish question, what advice do you have for anyone thinking about setting up their own networking event?
I would say just give it a go. Just have a go. Even if you think that no one's going to come, just pull in a few of your mates, even if they're nothing to do with it, just to come and fill the room out a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to speak to anyone who would like to find out a bit more about setting up networking events. If you want to come to a Women in Tech York event, because they're all virtual at the moment, so it doesn't matter where you are, you're welcome to come to them. You can sort of see how we run it online. But yeah, I really would just have a go. Just get name badges and book a room and have a go, you know. And then just, tell people to tell their friends, tell everyone that you work with to tell their friends and things, because they'll know someone who would like to go to what you've arranged. So, definitely. Just give it a go. Just do it. Just bite the bullet and do it.
See what happens. And that is because that's the thing that came out for me and comes out for me when I listen to your story. It's been about giving it a go, having and not it wasn't like the first event was then going to turn into monthly events. It was like, let's see who turns up. Yes. See what interest there is. Oh, and then let's try this, and then let's try that, and then maybe we add some pronouns in and some name badges and some and as you kind of come across more things, it's just turned into something. But I think the other thing is that because you're open to that, you're open to how can we do it better, you're taking the feedback from the community, which is making it more welcoming. So you're listening to people, and that creates that welcoming and inclusive community. It's not about you proving yourselves or anything like that. It's just like we want to do this and we want to create something for people and we want people to enjoy it. And so that for me is kind of what really comes through from what you said.
Yeah, definitely. The only other thing I'd add to that as well is that success isn't like having 300 people there. I think success is important to remember is for an event like this is making those connections. So there's 5 people in the room, but at the end of your hour, you're still talking and you still want to carry on the conversation. It just shows that's successful. So if you say, if I ran a product event, 5 people turned up, but we were debating till the early hours about the best way to do a certain thing, that's a success for me because, you know, I've created a community. There's people I can speak to now to help me with something or I've made friends. So I think you don't need to put pressure on yourself that you need to get 5,000 people. You just need to get enough people to have a good, you know, feel like a good community, good conversation.
I think that's a really, really good point. So yeah. And so how can people get involved, find out more?
I will send Emma all the links just so you've got them all. But we've got a Slack channel. We do events on the second Thursday every month. So you're welcome to come along. It's all remote at the moment. And then at some point we'll be going back in person, I think. But yeah, just come along to our events, find out more. And then when you come, if you want to do more, we've got ambassadors, which is, you know, very low key. Just when you turn up, you help out. And then we do have a committee. If people are interested in joining that committee, that's a bit more about event organisation, sponsorship, chatting too, and getting speakers. But you know, we welcome everybody to all positions. If you just want to come on to see us and just watch, then that's great too. But yeah, it'd be nice to see everybody there and learn about everybody a bit more.
And I think we'll probably share and make sure you share kind of when the events come out, then just at least for the next few, make sure that people know about them, because it is the fact that because it's going to be online stroke hybrid. I mean, I think Tony's come along and she's in Doncaster.
Yes.
And so various people, and we had someone from San Francisco in the careers. So it's like, and she is moving to York, but it's kind of
yes, that was great. She could come and she's met us all before she's even got here, and she said she's looking forward to meeting us. So yeah,
take advantage of it being online, and the hybrid stuff is going to continue for a little while yet as well. So
definitely,
please
come along.
I don't think we have any questions coming through, but for those that have joined us, thank you very much. I know Anne's there, but I don't know if there's anyone else, but thank you very much for coming along. Thank you, Rebecca, for coming and sharing. It's been really interesting and really useful. And it's just lovely and inspiring to hear and to kind of think it all through and to, just like you say, give it a go.
Just give it a go. And equally with speaking at events, you know, if you're nervous, just give it a go. And if you want to have a go at Women in Tech York, we'd happily have you, you know, have a go and finish your first talk. You don't have to fill a full half an hour. You can just do a 5-minute talk and that's it. So honestly, if you've got an event you want to do, just try. You just have a go. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Thank you very much. And I hope you all have a lovely evening. It is sunny here. It's time to get outside, which is why possibly there's not quite so many people on as well.
Probably, don't blame them.
So we better go out and get outside as well. But thank you so much, Rebecca, and
thank you.
We'll see everyone soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody.